Okay, so let's move on to chapter 4 or episode 4, as I'd like to call. It's a production possibilities curve or PPC, also called as production possibilities frontier or PPF. Okay, this is the first graph that you get introduced to. So let's dive right into it. So, what's a PPC? PPC is the maximum quantities of two goods that can be produced by an economy with its all available resources and technology. So, this is what a PPC really represents. Again, repeating, maximum quantity of two goods that can be produced by an economy with its available resources and technology. Now to produce on the PPC, which is on the curve that you see here, which is, this is the curve that I'm just, marking over. To produce on the PPC, two conditions must hold, which is there should be full employment of resources and the resources must be used efficiently. Okay. Now let's understand what a PPC curve looks like. So this is what a PPC graph looks like. On both your axes, there are two kinds of goods. So here we have bicycles and oranges. Okay. So the vertical axis is showing the number of bicycles that can be produced, and the horizontal axis is showing the number of oranges that can be produced. So PPC is this curve that I see. Okay. I am not marking it, but yeah, that is what was PPC. Now, when the two conditions, which is full employment and efficiency, is met, so if this holds true, if the two conditions that I mentioned above holds true, the economy will produce on the PPC, which is A and B. So you see A and B in the graph. So economy will produce on the PPC. Okay. And if it doesn't hold true, then the economy will produce at a point which is inside the PPC, which is C in our case. So you see C in the on the graph that's there. Okay. Now, when I speak about your PPC model, obviously no economy produces just two goods. So why are we really understanding this graph? We're understanding this graph because your PPC model shows several concepts very well that we've learned so far. So the first concept that PPC shows is scarcity. How does it show scarcity? Is that you cannot produce beyond the frontier. I can't produce beyond the frontier with the current set of resources. If I want to produce beyond the frontier, which is beyond this, then I will have to increase my resources, which we'll come to at a later point. So that's how scarcity is shown. I'll just do undo. Yeah. Next is choices. Now you can make bicycles and oranges, and if you want to function on the PPC, you have to choose what do you want to make more of. So what I mean by that is that if I want to produce more of oranges, which is if I go from 0.6 to 8, I will have to actually give up on bicycles. Okay. So that's when choices needs to be made because there is scarcity and there are only limited resources that we have. And obviously, if there are choices that are made, we learned before in our episode 1, which is that there's going to be an opportunity cost. So to produce 2 more tons of oranges, which is from 6 to 8, if I have to produce, I need to let go, or my opportunity cost is 10 bicycles. So opportunity cost we'll always mention in terms of what are we losing out on. So when I move from point A to B, I'm losing out on 10 bicycles. So the opportunity cost is 10 bicycles. Okay. Lastly, reallocation of resources, which is that if I am willing to increase oranges, I need to pull out resources from bicycles and put it to making of oranges. So there's reallocation of resources, which is shown here by movement from A to B, which is if I want to produce more of oranges, I see that I have to use the resources from bicycles to actually produce more of oranges. Okay, so this is what your PPC model shows, and these are the various concepts that PPC covers. Okay, so moving on to the last part, which is shifts in a PPC. Previously, I said that we can't really produce on at point D. Okay, sorry, I didn't mention that we can't really produce at point D, but basically we can't produce beyond the frontier. So we can't really produce at point D with the current set of resources. So now we're gonna understand how can I really produce at point D? Is it ever possible? So it is possible. Thereby we're gonna understand what are the shifts in a PPC. So shifts in a PPC are because of three reasons: change in quality of resources, change in quantity of resources, and technological changes. So here, let's understand if I want the PPC curve to shift from A to B, if I want to make it shift, want to increase it, I need to increase the quality of resources, and or I need to increase the quality of resources, and or I need technological changes which are more favorable. One more thing to understand here is whenever I draw the graph, understand how I'm drawing it. I will always have one category of goods on the vertical axis and one category of goods on the horizontal axis. I will always label my PPC, and if I'm showing a shift, I will always show where is the shift. Here I wanted to show increase in the productive potential or increase in the capacity of the economy. So thereby I showed an outward shift. So you have to specify this so that you get best marks for your answer. Okay. And don't worry, I'll actually take you guys through how to really write paper 2, but this is just a very quick tip. So yeah, this is what is a shift in PPC. Let's test ourselves a little. So I have a small exercise where I have three aspects that I'm considering. And okay, before that, actually, there's one thing that I want to specify and want to emphasize on is that I had mentioned that if the resources are not used efficiently, or if there is no full employment of resources, we function at point C. And most economies, mostly all economies actually function within the PPC itself, because there's some sort of inefficiencies and some sort of unemployment which exist in all economies whatsoever. Okay, so coming to your exercise. So the exercise, the first thing that we're going to see, or the first question that I want you guys to tell me about is, if there's an earthquake causing destruction of livelihoods, how will I really show it on PPC? The second one is, if there's Japanese technology, which is, I meant, imported by an Indian firm. Okay, so imported by an Indian firm, how would the PPC look like? And if the unemployment rate of this particular country falls from 9% to 7%, how will I show it on PPC? So take a minute and I'll get back here, pause the video, and I will show you exactly how we'll draw it. Okay, so I hope you guys have taken a minute. I'll tell you the answers already. Let me switch. Yeah. So for the first one, this is what it'll look like. If there's destruction of livelihoods, there's decrease in quantity and quality of resources. So firstly, I'll just mention here good X, or actually I'll write capital goods and consumer goods. So capital goods and consumer goods. Okay. So if there's an earthquake, which is causing destruction of livelihoods, the PPC will shift like this. It'll move from A to B. So there is a shift because there is, the reason for this is there is reduction in quantity of resources and there is a reduction in the quality of resources. Okay, now if there's a Japanese technology which is imported by an Indian firm, how are we going to show this? So we have capital goods and we have consumer goods. It's a bit messy, but because it's an advancement in technology, your PPC curve will shift outwards like this. Okay. Yeah, so this is what it'll look like. Next is unemployment rate falling from 9% to 7%. So, oopsies, this is not how, it's not curvy like this. It's like a proper curve. If the unemployment rate falls from 9% to 7%, that means there is still inefficiencies and there is obviously unemployment. If you recall from what we did just a while ago, it is essentially that we're functioning at point C. So even with a fall in unemployment rate, we're still inefficient. So this is how you'd show it. Okay, so again, capital goods and consumer goods. Okay, so unemployment falling will mean that it'll go from point A to point B like this. So point A is a little farther from PPC and point B it's a little closer than PPC. So because my unemployment rate is falling, we're getting better in terms of efficiency, but it's still inefficient, so it'll be within the PPC. Okay, so this is something that you guys need to always remember. Unemployment is always within the PPC, and all economies, like I said, mostly function at a point within the PPC itself. Okay, let's quickly look through certain MCQs. I'll just quickly open it for you guys. Okay, so in the Susan Grant book, there's also a section of shape of the PPC. This is something that we don't have in the syllabus, so it's not really covered in our videos for now. Okay, we're heading straight to the MCQs. So when I speak about the MCQs, let's dive straight in. So the first one is, a country experiences a fall in unemployment. How would this be shown on a PPC diagram? This is something that we just did. So it's a movement, it's a fall in unemployment. So it's a movement of the production point towards the curve. We just saw that. Which diagrams in which points in the diagram are unattainable? So are attainable. So attainable is your R, is your S, is your T, and is your U. V and W are unattainable. So R, S, T, U, it's C. The diagram shows the PPC, what can be concluded from the shape of the PPC. This is something which we don't really have in our syllabus, but I'll still do it for you guys. So all resources are equally good at producing. Yeah, the correct answer is A. This graph actually shows constant opportunity cost. It's not a part of your CIE IGCSE curriculum, so for now you can take it like it's fine if you don't really follow it. And that's about it, guys. We're done with 4 chapters. With this, we're done with unit 1, and stay tuned for more videos.